Hello, my name is E. Willie. I'm a 22-year-old out of St. Petersburg, Florida, and I am looking at everything going on right now, and it is absolutely insane to me. So I figured I'd take the extra time I have in my day to kind of report on the news and see if I could reach anybody. I want to. There's a big narrative going on that Biden was going to unite our country, and he's not. He's not doing that at all. He's doing the exact opposite. He's actually radicalizing half the nation. And you could say that Trump was partisan. Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair criticism. I would definitely say he was only focused on his base, but at least he wasn't holding the rest of the country with the bag while he was. While he was virtue signaling vague platitudes to the nation. And I want to kind of demonstrate this with Biden's proposed spending. In 100 days, Biden has proposed $6 trillion in new spending. Last year was supposed to be the year of huge federal spending, with the pandemic and lockdowns disrupting much of the economy. We had to make up the difference with borrowed money. We chewed through $6.5 trillion, about $20,000 for every person in the country. The previous year, we'd spent only $4.4 trillion, or $13,000 per person. In the final week of the year, then President Trump signed one last bill to spend yet another $2.3 trillion. Shortly thereafter, the Congressional Budget Office predicted that with this spending in place, 2021 would give us our second highest deficit in history as a percentage of our GDP, beaten only by last year. That we'd burn $5.7 trillion before things settled back down in 2022 and 2023. We could afford to go big in emergency because we have a very rich country, but even before the pandemic, we faced a crisis of exploding entitlement spending and debt. And rather than get spending back down and prepare for the future, Biden has spent his first 100 days dreaming up ways to blow more money. Some of his ideas are financed with debt, others by hiking taxes to fund new projects rather than fixing existing ones. Just weeks after Trump signed the $2.3 trillion COVID relief bill, Biden took office and set about putting together another one. Most of the resulting bill was wasteful, counterproductive, overly intrusive, or unrelated to the pandemic. Congress passed it anyway on a party line vote, and it's now the law. Look, okay, I don't really care too much, or not that I don't care, I don't really know enough about the economy to give my 2 cents, but there are things going around modern monetary value or theory, which basically says that government spending isn't really necessarily connected with the economy like we used to think. I'm not really sure. You can go do your own research about that. What I do want to show you is that, and the rest of the article goes on just to talk about the other bills he's proposed. One is an infrastructure plan and one is a families plan. And both bills are just loaded with more spending that is just designed to take power from the individual, and it places all of the risk on the middle class, and it is designed to intertwine government and your normal everyday life even more than it already is. But yeah, Biden doesn't care about uniting the country. He doesn't care about having the country go the right way. The Democrats don't care. They care about gaining more power, and they will continue to virtue signal to progressives and low information voters in order to push their agenda through. The spending will probably result in some kind of inflation. When you spend that much money and print that much money, it kind of has to. But nobody really cares. The left likes Biden, or the progressives, the woke cult, as Tim Pool would call it. They like Biden because he's easier to deal with than Trump. Unfortunately, Trump was bombastic, and he was very easy to criticize. So they won. They got Biden in, and Biden is just maintaining the status quo, while the progressives are slowly gaining more power. As you see in the court system and academia, where they've already been rooted, in children's schools, and they're kind of just trying to espouse their religion of wokeness and bring it and expand it as much as possible. Nobody cares about uniting the country. Nobody, because that would take people to take responsibility, and the left isn't going to do that. The right will do it, and the right doesn't have a problem taking responsibility. They're very individualistic and traditional, and they understand that things aren't so one-sided. But the left, they are not. And I want to show you with this article from the Washington Post, from memes to race war, how extremists use popular culture to lure recruits. Basically, the article is just talking about how the alt-right, which they do, lures unsuspecting victims that are lonely and outcasted from society and brings them into their racist, dangerous, extremist ideology. And yeah, they do that, but the right doesn't control any of our institutions, like I was saying. Unfortunately, the left does. And with this article, they show a video. It's called The Last Battle. They don't particularly give any evidence to where this video comes from, or who this video was directed towards, or who made the video. They don't, but they kind of show it as, oh, look at, now that Trump's gone, they have to find a boogeyman, and their boogeyman is the far right. And the left doesn't define far right, because in order to do that, they would probably have to, they would demonize most of the country, because to the progressives, some Trump voter is far right, and they do that on purpose, so they can demonize people. So they could just claim someone, oh, he's just far right, and that immediately just takes him out of the Overton window. And let's get into it. The first images of The Last Battle seem designed to rile people on the conservative side of the culture war. Public nudity, strippers, children dressed in drag, symbols of society supposedly in a moral free-for-all. Then the online video pivots to a more extreme material. Quick cutscenes of attacks on white people, bogus allegations of election fraud, and a parade of pictures purporting to show the Jewish communist takeover. The 6-minute video distributed on gaming platforms and social media rapidly reveals itself as a visually arresting propaganda piece, a recruiting tool for the far-right extremists that draw viewers in with, they're coming for your guns and they're opening your borders, and then it hits them with, they're humiliating your race and defend your race. The far-right groups that blossomed during Donald Trump's presidency, including white supremacists, self-styled militias, and purveyors of anti-government conspiracy theories, have created enduring communities by soft-pedaling their political goals and focusing on entertaining potential recruits with tools of pop culture, according to current and former members of the group and those who study the new extremism. They approach young people on gaming platforms, lure them into the private rooms with memes that start off as edgy humor and gradually grow overtly racist. They literally sell their ideas, commodifying their slogans and actions as live streams, t-shirts, and coffee mugs. They insinuate themselves into chats, offering open ears and warm friendship to people who are talking online about being lonely, depressed, or chronically ill. And look, yes, there are people that are neo-Nazis online, alt-right, as people would call them, that do this. But they don't define far-right. So who is it? Who's selling those coffee mugs? Is that Steven Crowder? Is Steven Crowder far-right? And does the left take any responsibility for any of these people actually feeling like they're disenfranchised? Do these young, lonely, depressed, probably white males that are probably ugly and social outcasts, do they take any responsibility for making them feel that way by promoting diversity and inclusion, but not inclusion to white people, to young white people? Yeah, they're opening our borders. So you can see as Biden has handled that. Did they take any responsibility for it? Now, is the answer to be all part of the alt-right? No, it isn't. But it would be to kind of to give us that olive branch you promised. But the far left, which is in every institution, will never do that. Instead, they're going to continue to deflect and accuse a boogeyman that there isn't one. The far right isn't a problem in this country. The far left definitely is. And you can see by the hypocrisy. Look how they've handled the whole George Floyd debacle. They've burned down cities. Nobody's taken responsibility for it. Nobody's condemned it. Nobody said this is needed to stop. They keep inflaming it. But what happens when somebody on the right is the victim of an unfortunate shooting? What happens then? Nothing happens exactly, and I will demonstrate this right now. Ashley Babbitt, if you don't know, lost her life during the Capitol riot. The cops let in a group of Trump protesters. She was climbing through a broken window. There was a scared cop. And unfortunately, he shot her and she died. Now, look, I understand there needs to be certain protections given to officers so they can do their jobs correctly. And it is unfortunate that Ashley Babbitt lost her life. But there are consequences for your actions. And people need to be aware of when you're making a decision, when you're entering, and albeit that the cops did let them in, but you have to be aware of your surroundings. And you got to be aware. Now, what happened with Ashley Babbitt is complete another bull crap. The cop was scared. Cop shot her. And now they're not doing anything because the right doesn't go and burn down buildings. The right doesn't go and slander people. The right doesn't go and make up nonsense to justify their immaturity. The Department of Justice announced Wednesday it will not pursue charges against the U.S. Capitol officer who fatally shot a rioter. She was not a rioter. There were cops with her going up the stairs. She had her little flag on. The cops let her in the building. A glass broke somehow. She climbed through it. There was a scared cop, and he shot her. She was not a rioter. She was not a rioter whatsoever. And it's really a shame that the news will manipulate the story to make the right out to be the bad guy. Inside the Capitol building on January 6th, officers determined there wasn't enough evidence to support a criminal prosecution. Following the shooting, an investigation was launched by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia's Public Corruption and Civil Rights Section and Civil Rights Division, with the Metropolitan Police Department's Internal Affairs Division. According to a Justice Department statement, the investigation failed to provide evidence that the officer violated blah, 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 depriving Ashley Babbitt of her rights under the color of the law. So basically, they're just saying they can't press any charges because the officer didn't violate any of her constitutional amendments. I'm not a lawyer. It's not up for me to decide. What you can obviously see is the blaring hypocrisy between how the left is treated and how the right is treated. And it will continue to get worse and worse until people start to speak out against it. And we do. We have DeSantis, who he's my governor. I absolutely love him. I'm loving what he's doing, all the legislation he's putting into office, and it shows you he's doing it the right way. That's how the right is going to win this ideological battle. It's by electing people who are strong-willed and will fight for what is right and fight for justice. And it will be won in the courts, like with what Project Veritas is doing. It will be won by being resourceful